Good morning, friends. I think the topic chosen for this policy circle debate, sustainability in human settlements and habitat, I think is very topical and very, very important. Particularly now that we have the Sustainable Development Goals, I think we are now laying a lot of emphasis on sustainability of development. Whatever activities that we undertake, whether it is industrial development or educational development, general economic development, development of cities, development in any form for that matter, be it airports, seaports, railway stations, any kind of development, we are now trying to incorporate a very important component, and that is the component of sustainability. Because any development cannot happen in the present day time and age if it is not sustainable, because we would be consuming whatever limited resources that we have, and very soon we will find that these limited resources have exhausted and we have nothing left for the future generations. In addition to that, sustainability is also important, because if it is going to lead to global warming or pollution of our limited resources that we have, whether it is water or air, there again there is a problem, and that's not a sustainable way of undertaking development. This thinking was perhaps not there in the earlier days of the Industrial Revolution, but as we moved along in our civilizational conquest, if I may say so, we have realized that we need to incorporate this element of sustainability, particularly in the context of human settlements. I would restrict myself to human settlements. I think one of the key areas where we need to look at is safe, clean drinking water. Water is one area where historically also we have seen that settlements have come and settlements have gone away just because of the non-availability of adequate water. And as our cities keep growing larger and larger, it is slated that in the next 10 years, probably the Delhi NCR would become the largest urban agglomeration in the entire world, which means that all these people who are going to come and settle here, they all need to be provided with drinking water. And not only drinking water, but water for a variety of other purposes for existence. So, what do we need to do in this particular context? While on the one hand, we see an excess of water in terms of sudden rains and so on account of climate warming, which is also very unsustainable. There is a lot of loss of life and property. But for basic drinking water, most of our urban agglomerations, most of our large cities, we are able to get water only for a few hours. We are forced to bring water from very long distances. So water security is going to be one very important area where we need to take stringent policy measures, regulatory measures, whatever it takes, so that we use water in a judicious manner. We use minimal amount of water, get the maximum amount of the limited water that we have, and also recycle water. A lot of water is actually wasted in our toilets and while bathing and washing and so on. So today technology has advanced and we have water recycling plants, water treatment plants, water reuse plants. So how do we ensure that these are all installed? We have missions of the Government of India where we are trying to inculcate this sense of water security, and the Government of India is funding through various projects, so various kinds of water infrastructure, so that you are able to recycle and reuse the limited water that is available. In the private sector also, it is being made mandatory we now have what is called a green building. And green buildings have become very, very common. We have a very large number of green buildings today in the country. But again, we are still hovering around at the tip of the iceberg because we still have a very, very long way to go. But then we've made a start nevertheless. We've made a good start, and we have a large number of green buildings where we are now making it mandatory that if you have to call a building or a complex, a green complex, a green project, then water sustainability is going to be one of the most important ingredients. How do you harvest rain? You have a lot of excess rain in certain months, and then you don't have water at all in certain other months. So how do you catch the rainwater? How do you store it carefully? How do you do the rainwater harvesting? How do you recharge the groundwater? How do you ensure that the river waters are not polluted? So it's a huge subject by itself: water security, water conservation, water recycling, water management in urban areas, and this is being done in a big way in our human settlements, in various housing projects and other projects as well. But I must mention here that the amount of water that's used in the urban areas as compared to the amount of water that is used in the agricultural practices, that also needs to be seen, because in the rural areas there is plenty of water available in many rural areas where very close to the riverbeds and so on, where water is not very carefully used. So there also one has to be very careful. And there are so many arid parts of this country where water is very precious, and there what kind of structures need to be built in order to harness water, to store water, particularly the rainwater. A lot of work has been done in the state of Rajasthan, sometime back in the state of Andhra Pradesh as well. So one needs to look at this because long-term human habitat sustainability, the sustainability of human life, is dependent to a great extent on water. If water is not there, then we'll have to abandon our cities and we'll have to go somewhere else. So where do we go? And of course, living in cities has its own advantages: jobs, economy, growth of GDP. More than 50% of the GDP of the country actually comes from the cities. So the economy of the nation lies in the cities. So urban areas are very, very important. Congregation of human beings at one place, in one small geography, leads to several economic benefits. That is why cities happen in the first place. So therefore, we need to do all of these. Rainwater harvesting has already been made mandatory in several cities in India. There are what are called development controls, building bylaws. These are all the regulations that are put in place in cities for projects to be developed. So there, rainwater harvesting has been made compulsory. But then what happens to all those areas which have been developed a long time back? Large portions of the city have already been built. So in the new projects, we can ensure that a water recycling plant is put. We can ensure that a water treatment plant is put. We can ensure rainwater harvesting. But what happens in the other areas which have already been built a long time back? So how do you retrofit some of these is extremely important. So many challenges, both at the policy level. The technology is available, but I think more the policy, the governance, and the regulatory issues. What happens if people don't care and people don't do it? So how do you ensure that people do it? The next important area is electricity, power. Where do you get the power from? Because today our life has become more and more energy dependent. For everything, starting from the minuscule power which probably your mobile phone takes to charge, your laptops, your computers, all the kitchen gadgets that you have. Over a dozen of kitchen gadgets are required today, without which you can't cook your food. Unfortunately, that is the way it is. So with so many power guzzlers, in the kitchen, in your home, the air conditioners and all these things which consume huge amounts of power. Where are we going to get power from? Energy security is becoming another very, very important area. So we need to build, we need to either have buildings. There is a Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which is closely working on ensuring that gadgets consume less power. There is an optimal utilization of the power that's available, more efficiency out of minimal power usage. But that apart, why are we becoming more and more dependent on so many gadgets? That is also something that we need to really think about. Building design, I think has a major role to play. In the earlier days, when we did not have all these air conditioning and other kinds of gadgets, buildings were designed in a different manner. Buildings were designed for the tropical climates where temperatures are very, very high. Buildings had thick walls, buildings had high ceilings, buildings had ventilators, buildings had appropriately sized windows on the northern walls as well as the southern walls, so as to limit the ingress of solar radiation and heat to the minimum possible extent, and at the same time also get in a lot of passive light. And that was how buildings were designed. That was how cities were designed. Orientation was a very, very prime concern in building design. Unfortunately, today we have thrown all these fundamental principles of city design and building design to the winds, and then we are now becoming more and more dependent upon more tube lights, more electricity, more air conditioning, and so on and so forth. And we've completely changed the way in which we build. And because of this, we are consuming unnecessarily enormous amounts of energy. And this energy is coming at certain cost to the environment. So therefore, it is again very, very important that appropriate sustainable building design needs to be put in place. There are so many other areas. Mobility, for instance. Earlier days, our cities were very compact and you could actually walk to work and all that kind of thing. Today, walk to work has only remained a slogan because you still have to travel long distances. And in the absence of an adequate, well spread out mass transportation network with a last mile connectivity, we are still forced to use motor cars or two-wheelers. And therefore, there again, there are challenges placed on the fossil fuels and so on and so forth. So in the realm of the city, in the realm of human settlements and habitat, sustainability measures need to be taken on a very large scale. There are so many ways in which you can do it. There are training programs. We at the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, funded by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, are conducting a series of training programs on how you can do better sustainability in terms of design and technology. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has created a model building bylaws, and they have been forcing all the state governments to please adopt them, and a large number of state governments have actually complied with the directions or with the request of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and state governments have also modified their building bylaws. It is more or less mandatory now for governments to approve projects only if they are green projects. So there are incentives also given, additional FAR and so on. But I think the most important thing that is required is the change in attitude, the awareness. People have to become aware that this is for our common future. It's not just for my individual life as long as I live, but the future generations, which are very important. So this attitudinal change has to be brought about in the school children, in the youngsters, in the architects, in all communities, all stakeholders, government employees, the regulators, the politicians, particularly the local bodies. All of them need to come together, and they need to play their own part in bringing about sustainability, actually implementing measures on the ground in order to ensure that sustainability actually happens, and that's the only way in which we can protect our Mother Earth, and we can protect human civilization. Thank you so much, Policy Circle, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.